Good evening. This is The Digital Age, and I'm Jim Zirin. With the holiday season approaching, many of us are eating more, exercising less, experiencing more stress, and aging more rapidly. Our guest tonight is fighting in the trenches against this syndrome. He is Chris Crowley. Chris Crowley is a world-class cyclist. He is a health nut. He is a lawyer. He is an author. He is a man for all seasons, and he's just written a dynamite book entitled Thinner Next Year. Thinner Next Year, it's a prequel to his prior book, which was called Younger Next Year. And we want to find out all about it. Chris, we're delighted to have you with us.
Tickled to be here, Jim.
Well, now, let me ask you this. You wrote a book that was a blockbuster.
Big hit.
Younger Next Year.
Yep.
Million copies, 10 languages,
more than that.
published all over the world. What'd you want to do this for?
There's a little appetite out there for it. It's interesting. People wanted to. The first one was sort of a why-to book. You know, this is what you ought to do for all kinds of reasons. This is the how-to book. This is the Bible that tells you how to actually do stuff. People were very curious, especially on the nutrition side. So, well, you know, what do you actually eat? How do you do all this stuff? I took a deep breath, found a terrific partner, and we try to tell you.
Right. Now, all right, so first place, what is the problem that you're trying to get at?
Oh boy, oh boy. Well, you hear about it all the time.
Why are we in so much trouble?
Why are we in so much trouble? The thing is, we are in such god-awful trouble. We just don't have any sense of it. It's amazing. The combination of the way we eat and the way we don't move is just causing tremendous havoc in this country and in the Western democracies generally. We eat too much. We're 20% fatter than we were 30 years ago. We're bone idle, and it's making a mess of our health. Do some simple stuff that we talk about in these books. Do some simple behavioral changes. Eat differently, exercise like a crazy person. You can avoid forever 50% of all the serious illness and accidents that the other kids have. In a country that's drowning in the costs of health care and whatnot, to say nothing of ourselves, that is worth a lot. We're going to a lot of trouble.
So now you ride a bicycle 100 miles. You're almost 80 years old. You've got to be out of your mind. Now, am I supposed to do that if I'm going to look like you?
You do look like me. You look better. But anyway,
No.
I don't. There are days when I don't ride 100 miles. There are days when I limp along and do 20 miles, whatever. But that's not the thing. The trick is to exercise fairly seriously, an hour, 45 minutes a day, 6 days a week until the day you die, frankly.
Right. So I can continue. You had a mentor named Hazard Gillespie, greatly admired.
Hazard Gillespie.
He was a U.S. attorney. He died at age 100.
He was my great friend and mentor, wonderful guy, purely slim, full of energy, a great model, and all this stuff too. When he was 100 years old, he bought a new exercise machine, and he used it too.
A treadmill, an elliptical?
It was sort of a treadmill-y kind of a thing, yeah. It wasn't wild, but he was 100 years old.
So you say I can do this at any age. I mean, I can catch up with the program even at this late date.
Oh, start today, any old, whatever age. Younger is better, but if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, we get all this mail from people. We've had wild success with the product. With Younger Next Year. We get these success stories, people who radically changed their lives in their 70s and even their 80s. It's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And you continue on until you go over the waterfall.
You go over the waterfall, my man.
But we don't know when that'll be, so we continue.
The trick, I don't know if you can see this, but normal American aging looks like this: a steady decline, 50 on every year, a little slower, fatter, more pain-racked, stupider, less fun, until you go over the waterfall. You're going over the waterfall regardless. We're not doing so hot on that. However, you can cut square corners. You can be about the same man or woman until you're 80 and beyond. Not exactly the same, but this versus this, it's just a world of difference, worth a lot of trouble, which is good because it is a lot of trouble.
Now, in your book, you quote F. Scott Fitzgerald, undoubtedly another one of your great mentors. I mean, he said, we beat on boats against the current. I mean, isn't that what I'm doing at my age? To try to exercise and what about all the things I like to eat?
You got to have a good life. But Fitzgerald's interesting. Fitzgerald famously said that there are no second acts in American life. Well, nowadays the average life expectancy is in your 80s. You're going to live a long, long time. And if there are no second acts, it's going to be a long, dull play, believe me.
Well, he had no second act because he burned his candle at both ends.
And the middle a little bit.
And the middle, too.
Yeah.
And the middle, too. So let's get back to you wrote this book the first book you wrote with a doctor.
Harry Lodge.
Doctor,
Wonderful
medical
Harry
doctor,
Lodge.
wonderful doctor.
Brilliant guy.
Now, here you write the book with a nutritionist, a PhD.
She's Jennifer Sachek is a wonderful woman. She's 38 and I'm not. She's a professor at Tufts.
She is younger next year.
She's younger already. She's been younger for a while. Wonderful woman. She's a rock star at her field, a professor of nutrition and exercise physiology. Tufts, it turns out, not my beloved Harvard, but Tufts is the world capital of nutrition and whatnot. They do a lot of stuff, and she's a rock star up there. And she is my guide and mentor and scold and whatnot. We did this book together. It was a lot of work, and she was a lot of fun. She's a smarty pants.
So she did the diet piece.
We did it together. I mean, she's the brains of the outfit. We took turns doing the chapters where we did the first book. She's young and smart, and I'm old and funny, sometimes.
Now you say in the book that you hate diet books,
Yeah.
and that diets really don't do any good. And what always turns me off is they say take 2 cupfuls of lettuce. I don't know what a cupful of lettuce is. Or put some oil on. I don't know what oil to put on.
Or don't put some oil on.
But you have something much more specific here, don't you?
Well, we tell you 2 things. The big one is that we say, unlike almost all these books, we think that exercise is the flywheel of the good life. Exercise does all kinds of amazing things. We are idle at our peril, but it helps a lot on weight loss and weight maintenance too. Not only a matter of burning calories, which is a big help, but also it changes the way you digest food. Your metabolism works differently when you exercise. It goes to fat more readily rather than glucose, which is the sugar. Those are the 2 basic fuels. The fat is the killer. You want to talk about that for a second, if I can just step to one side and take a minute?
Well, I know wherever I speak when it comes to fat.
You are not fat, my
So
dear.
tell me about
but here's
fat.
You know, we all assume in this country, because it's true of almost all of us, hey, look, I'm getting older. I'm going to gain 25, 30, 40 pounds, and that's okay. Well, it's true, you're going to gain 25, 30, or 40 pounds, but it's not okay. One of the things I learned from Jen, carrying around stored fat is a huge deal, and it's not okay. Stored fat it's not inert. It looks inert, but it's not. It sends out inflammation signals all the time. It is the great font of inflammation inside our bodies. Inflammation is the mother and father of cancers and heart attacks and strokes. All the rotten stuff that happens can be summarized, if there's one great Satan in your body, it's inflammation. Stored fat is the great source of inflammation. There's a nice line in the book. It's my line, Jim. Your little tummy tum, your little pot belly there, you give it a little pat with affection. Don't do that.
Don't be a Buddha.
Don't be a Buddha. Don't pat the belly. Your gut, in particular, that adipose fat, they call it, it's an open sewer inside your body, and at night, the rats come out.
That was a good line. I also remember the line, the first book, the line I remembered was don't eat crap.
Don't eat crap, still true.
That's still true.
Good advice.
But this book talks about a mountain of slop and despair.
The mountain of slop and despair.
Oh my God, where'd you get that one from?
Lovely. It's so crude, too. We live on the sides of a mountain of slop and despair. There's a huge, powerful forces. They're putting together food that's just god-awful for us. They are spending billions and billions of dollars persuading us to eat it and persuading our little kids to give kids toys. It's like sucking kids into the gingerbread house in the forest. It isn't safe in there. I call them gastropedophiles in the book. These guys are dangerous to all of us and themselves. But there's so much dough in it, they can't help themselves. It's their great flaw. We eat dreadfully in this country. The way we eat is killing us. We've got to make fundamental changes. It's hard to change that kind of stuff. Exercise and eating differently, big difference.
Well, the datum is that 2/3 of Americans are obese, which is more than just overweight.
One third are obese, 2/3 are overweight.
2/3 are overweight.
Yeah, and it's the same with the kids. We're teaching our kids to eat on the mountain of slop and despair. For a treat, we take them to McDonald's. Some treat, not good.
They'll need a treatment.
Exactly.
So,
for sure.
all right, so the first thing that you've got to do to me is you've got to make me take the pledge, to make up my mind to do it.
It's so hard. It's a mysterious thing. Motivation, self-motivation, especially in the face of all this powerful persuasion, these odors. You walk through the airport, my golly, it smells so wonderful. All those terrible white flour products, Auntie so-and-so's cinnamon rolls and so on. Tremendous pressure. Yeah, you have to take the pressure. You have to get serious about it. half the food we eat is dead food. It has no nutrients in it, no nutritional value.
What's an example of some dead food with no nutritional value?
All the stuff that's got white flour and all that yummy stuff that the Pillsbury Doughboy makes, all that stuff that nice General Mills woman Betty Crocker makes, all that stuff is almost completely made up of sugar and white flour and fats that
Trans fats.
No, not so much trans fats. Well, trans fats, but also solid fats.
Solid fats.
Here's a wonderful number. 35% of the American diet, 35%, is added sugar and fats that are injected into prepared foods by food makers. Think about that. Not 35% of those foods, 35% of all we eat as a nation is stuff that's injected into prepared foods because it makes them tastier, it's addictive, and it makes them gives them a longer shelf life.
So it's chemicals, it's flavor enhancers.
No, not so much that. It's the actual sugar and white refined flour. Refined flour, they take all the good stuff out of it. Not brown. Whole wheat is terrific for you, unless you have that disease, which I can't remember the name of. But whole wheats, good grains are great, but refined grains are terrible. White rice is just like eating sugar. It doesn't make sense. It takes up space, it makes you fat, and it does your body no good.
So what do I order in a Chinese restaurant, or don't I go to a Chinese restaurant?
Maybe a little less Chinese. They've got vegetables too.
Gotta go once a week.
Once a week, that makes sense.
That's all right.
The basic notion is you ought to have, I hate to talk like that, but it makes a world of sense to have your plate be about half vegetables, half by volume, wherever you're eating, in or out. Good idea.
Now, you argue in this book that if I do what you say, I can lose 25 pounds in 6 months. I mean, it's
not that you need to, but you bet.
Oh, I need to. I need to.
Do it.
Do it. I will do it.
Just start.
I will do it. Now, also, you say right on the cover, it says, a diet and exercise program for living strong, fit, and sexy. How are you going to make me sexy?
I think about little else, Jim. First of all, I don't write the cover copy. I write the book. It's, sexy. Here's one thing. With more energy, more optimism, more higher, better moods, that's sexier. Also, if your body's a little more attractive, you won't be so shy about taking your duds off in the dark of the night. And you'll do more rolling about.
All right. Now, let's get to the L word. Since we're talking about sexy, let's get to the L word, which is liquor.
Liquor.
Can I have liquor on your
You can have liquor,
regime?
but liquor is a teeny bit fattening. And also, I'm a steady, reliable, virtuous drinker, and I'm not giving up.
Drinker.
I like it very much, and I'm not quitting. But it does make sense, especially as you get older, to try to do less. If you can limit yourself to a couple of glasses of wine a night as a guy, you're doing a hell of a job, or one martini, something like that.
Once in a while.
Once in a great while.
Now, how about pasta? I can't live without pasta.
Here's the trick about pasta. I love pasta too, love it. I'm a teeny bit of a cook. Do you cook at all?
Sure, cook pasta.
Well, think about, you can make a pasta sauce that's really pretty terrific, heavy on veg, not too many rotten things. Then just double up. Have it be mostly sauce and have the underlying pasta be more of a garnish. It'll still taste terrific, look terrific. It's still a spaghetti meal, but you're not wolfing down all that. Pasta's just sugar. Turns into sugar like that.
One of the keys to your whole program is to eat less.
Yeah.
It's not just what we eat. I mean, we should avoid eating crap, but we should eat less. So you don't eat everything on your plate. I mean, then my mother in heaven is telling me, finish your plate, clean your plate.
The most sinister organization in America is the Thin Plate Club. It's worse than the Ku Klux Klan. It's an evil organization. I don't know what your mother thought she was doing, but it's a bad thing. Don't clean your plate. When you go to a restaurant where the portions are twice the size they ought to be, just take your fork and put one half to one side, eat the rest of it. Save one to take it home to for yourself, for the dog, whatever. Eat half. Send the bread basket back to Breadsylvania and have 2 drinks.
Well, now they serve generous portions, but remember Fanny Brice's line about the restaurant, the food is poison and they serve such small portions.
Portions have gotten enormous in the last 20 years. It's astounding. And it's only us, only we can do anything about it. We're stuck with ourselves.
All right, so we follow this basic program.
Yeah.
We eat right, we eat less, we exercise, and then what happens?
You live a glorious life. Are you kidding me? First of all, you lose all this weight, which is nice, but the exercise portion in particular, no, both of them together. Your mood is better, you feel better. I get a lot of mail from people who tried this already, and the main thing they say, people the main thing they say is, it's nice to look a little better, but the main thing is I feel so much better.
You
so
do
much
feel
more
better.
Energy, optimism, and so on, effectiveness.
All right, now what about vitamin supplements, all those pills I see in the vitamin store? Don't they do any good?
Huge industry, and it's mostly baloney. It's mostly a matter of having more expensive urine. Too bad.
Too bad. And
some of them make sense. It makes sense for people in the north to have a vitamin D thing once in a while. It makes sense to take a half an aspirin. It doesn't make sense to take even a multivitamin, frankly. Most of that stuff is just a waste of money. Take that dough, go to the gym.
Good idea. Now, also, a lot of people I know say they are gluten intolerant, and they can only have I don't even know what glutens are. Is that part of your regime about
No,
gluten-free diet?
There are these fads that come along, and it's so hard for a layman to have any idea, what's real and what's not. I remember when the high, what do you call it? What's the word I'm thinking about? The high and low. Out of my head. Anyway, there are all these fads that come along, and gluten's one of them. About 1% of the people have a serious medical problem with glutens, which are in some grains, including wheat. And they shouldn't eat them because they'll get sick. But all the rest of us, it largely doesn't matter. And what's happening, when the food industry jumps onto these things, it's more or less a warning to look out. They've got all the stuff that's gluten-free, but typically, or frequently, they add in other stuff that's a good deal worse for most people than the gluten is. Gluten's not a problem for 1 in 100. Don't bother with it.
Don't bother
if
with
your
gluten.
doctor says you've got a gluten problem, I forget the name of the disease, fine and dandy. It's so hard. The word I was looking for is glycemic index. I thought the glycemic index was more baloney. That's how fast your food goes through your body. That turns out to make a huge difference. We'll come back to it. But it's hard for a layman to know the good stuff from the baloney. One of the nifty things about this book is that Jen is a real solid scientist. Everything that she says is as true as people can make it today, and it's got to be solid for a while. There are no easy answers, no magic pills and whatnot. But it's a relief not to have any baloney.
Now, let's talk about the exercise piece, because you also did this with Bill Fabricini, an expert in strength training, and Riggs Kilka, an expert in aerobic training. I mean, you're like a lawyer calling expert witnesses. You're going back to your prior life.
You can bet I don't know this stuff myself. I did do that. I went out and got these two guys, both of them terrific in because Bill Fabricini is a brilliant guy, an intuitive, he's a scholar as well, but just an intuitive healer. The way strength training is hugely important for a bunch of reasons. Just ever so briefly, it has everything to do with preserving muscle mass, balance, coordination. It's hugely important. Once you hit 40, if you're not doing some strength training, serious things are going to go wrong. I'll come back to that. But one of the things that we learned strength training in this country back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, when people were using machines, those wonderful, I forget the name, machines. And they're great, but they're designed for bodybuilders. They isolate your muscles. One of the nifty things about this book is it points out that whole body exercise is the way to go. All movement, all athletic movement, all daily life movement is whole body stuff. It involves your core, especially balance and integration of all the pieces. He teaches you how to do that.
And you have diagrams of 25 exercises.
Little diagrams, people in their undies running around, picking up stuff.
That's so. What is it? It's free weights, it's stretches, it's
free weights, a few machines. But mostly it's body move. He teaches body movement, whole body movement. Train movement, not muscles. Train to do basic moves. Learn to rotate properly. Learn not to twist your lower back. 80% of the people in this country have serious enough back trouble to go to a doctor about it, and there's no need for it. So much of the stuff that goes wrong with all of us has to do with behavior. We talk about that.
So do I have to do all 25 exercises every day, Daddy, or can I just figure out my favorites?
You can do exactly what you want. Well, you don't have to do any of this.
I know that, then I won't be thinner. And
it makes sense. Work out for 45 minutes a day. Do as many as you want. Do the ones you like. Make a blend of them. But, the great trick is to be out there for 45 minutes or an hour a day. Then you'll be fine, thanks.
All right, if you were to pick one exercise you like, what would you choose? What's your favorite?
Of course, I love to bicycle. That's a different matter. But as far as these strength things are concerned, lunges, oddly
you
enough,
like lunges?
Side
lunges or forward lunges?
Forward lunge, it doesn't matter. But I'm used to sitting in leg press machine. You know what that looks like? You sit
Yes,
down, you
yeah.
push a big pile of weights up.
Right.
I can push up a bunch of weight. I thought I was a hell of a guy. But the trouble is it does these muscles, it does your quads, but it doesn't do the whole body stuff. When you do lunges, which is a matter of, you're going down on one knee, stepping on the other and stuff, you have to balance your whole body, you have to coordinate your whole body, and it's a tremendous amount of work. I couldn't do it at first.
Lawyers love
takes
lunges.
a
It's
while.
thrust and parry. That's what they do.
Exactly. Not always with their quads, however. I think you can't pick one. You got to do them all, but that's a beauty.
Now, we talked about Fitzgerald saying there's no second act,
Yep.
and we now think that maybe there's a third act and a fourth act. You
Gotta
tell
be.
this marvelous story about President Ulysses S. Grant at Galena,
Isn't that a
who
lovely
found a
story?
writing career after being a general and a president.
Grant was washed up when he was washed up at about the age that Fitzgerald died. And Fitzgerald was the one who said no second act. And Grant, he's a bit of a drunk and whatnot, trouble guy, gets into the Civil War, he was this amazingly gifted general, becomes, the head of the armies, wins the war, then becomes president, pretty good president too, better than people think. And then he got robbed by the Madoff of his day, and he didn't have a dime, he was worried about his wife. And here he is in his third act, if not fourth. He sits down to write a book, and it's the best book by a military guy since Caesar's Gallic Commentaries. I just love him. He's a guy who just would never, ever quit. Not because he was going to live forever, but just he wanted to go all the way out, over the waterfall.
Oh, that's marvelous. Now, you also talk about the limbic brain versus the thinking brain. I mean, what is that all about? I didn't quite follow your reasoning on that one.
It's not reasoning, it's just out there. We got three brains. We got the physical one sits right back here someplace. It's called the physical or reptilian brain. Sounds bad, but it's pretty good. It regulates all movement, your heartbeat, your lungs, skiing, diving off the high board, the birds in the air, the fish in the sea. We all have a reptilian brain. Then a couple hundred million years ago, along come mammals, and they have the limbic brain, and all it does is convey and receive emotions. And it lets mammals, unlike the fishes and the reptiles, communicate with one another emotionally and spend more time with their children and get together in herds and packs and law firms, which is good.
That's good.
And then along comes man with the big
So I don't have
thinking
to
brain.
sleep with the fishes, I can sleep with the lawyers.
Better.
Better.
Not my choice, but
That's
better.
right. Good.
Then comes the thinking brain, which is the rational one that we think that lawyers like us set such great store by. But even with the thinking brain, which is the thing that makes us human and is so wonderful in every way, a huge amount of what we are as mammals are so many. Most of our decisions are made way below the surface at the level of the limbic brain. We are primarily limbic creatures. We are designed to work in packs and herds. It's worth thinking about because people who get old like me, even you, there's a risk, especially for men, you get isolated and cut off from other people. It makes you sick. It's very interesting.
Well, you can't really stop the aging process, but you certainly can slow it down based on what you described.
You can slow it down, you can change it. You can change the quality of life. You can be more like yourself all the way out. My great goal in these books is to tell people, hey, look, you can be yourself almost to the waterfall. You're going to get a little goofy toward the end probably, but who knows. But to be yourself, to be like the other kids. I can still bike with kids who are in their 40s and 50s. I'm not a great biker. That intro was a little bit off, but I do it a lot.
I think the intro was on. I think you're just being modest.
I can ski with people in their 40s and whatnot. You can be like a human being, which is nice.
Now, the other point you make is you've got to find a kedge. What in the hell is a kedge?
Kedge is a lovely concept. A kedge is from an old term from sailing days when there were no motors to, if you were stuck someplace and the wind was down, what they did in an emergency, the pirates are coming or you're going on a lee shore or whatever it is, they'd have some people get out in a little boat and take a kedge, which is a small anchor. They'd go out as far as they could and set the anchor and then go back to the big boat and pull themselves forward to the little anchor. That's called kedging. Happened all the time. In life, we do this.
So this is an analogy.
This is an analogy. You need a kedge. You need something. Set a goal out there. Make it hard. Pull yourself forward. Like decide you're going to go on some terrific ski trip that's a little bit too tough for you. A bike trip, whatever the dickens it is. Half marathon. Kedge.
Now,
a couple of years.
In the case of your daughter, she swam the English Channel.
That is beyond a kedge.
That's beyond a kedge. That's a kedge and a half.
That is. kids around the world. Isn't that amazing?
So was that all part of this program that she did this, or did you say to daughter get a kedge and she went out and swam the channel?
She came to one of our Aspen things and was motivated. She lost a bunch of weight, but she kept enough on that water. You know, it's 58 degrees, 59 degrees, and you don't wear any bathing suit or oil. You're just you have a bathing suit, but that's it. No wetsuit. It's hard. Hard. But that's beyond kedges. That's just goofy.
So the only people I've ever heard of who did this are your daughter and Gertrude Ederle.
It ain't common. Fewer people have done this than have climbed Mount Everest because it's harder.
Harder indeed. Now, so let's try to recapitulate the secrets of aging gracefully. You, of course, dieting. With,
three big pieces. It makes a world of sense to work out hard for you 6 days a week until the day you die.
Right.
It's a wildly difficult prescription, but it is so worth it. It makes such a profound difference in the quality of your life, the absence of illness. That's the big one. Second, you ought to eat in a sane way. You ought to eat less and you ought to eat good stuff, because eating the slop we eat now, it is the mountain of slop and despair, and it makes us sick. Terrible idea. And third, the third leg of the stool, it makes tremendous sense to be closely connected to other people, to be involved, to care about others, have them care about you. We're designed for it. We're mammals. We got to snuggle up.
Snuggle up. Now, Chris Crowley, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Can I really be thinner this year?
You bet. 6 months from now, 25 pounds.
25 pounds.
Guaranteed. Well, not guaranteed. Pretty good chance.
This has been just marvelous. Thank you
Great
so
pleasure.
much for
Thanks,
coming
Jim.
by.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for coming by. Tune in next week for more on the digital age. Please visit our website at www.digitalage.org. For the Digital Age, I'm Jim Zirin. Good night and all the best.